morning and welcome to CREDE Play Office. Today I have the true benefit and pleasure of hosting my dear friend Andrew Kirsh of Sklar Kirsh, a preeminent law firm in Southern California that focuses on real estate transactions, bankruptcy, leasing, etc. And Andrew, today, let's start off a little bit about, how you got into law and why you actually wanted to create your own law firm, and what's the passion behind getting you to truly being, in my mind, one of the great law firms of Southern California.
Well, first of all, Colby, thanks for having me on. It's an honor. Um, I if we go all the way back to the mid '90s, a movie came out, A Few Good Men, and I loved. First of all, I loved all Tom Cruise movies. Let's just get that out of the way. My son's name is Maverick, so you know where that's from. And A Few Good Men is just a quintessential law movie that really hit home. I thought I wanted to be a litigator. I wanted to be in the courtroom. I wanted to, say you can't handle the truth, and went to college at Northwestern, then law school at Northwestern, started at Latham and Watkins, which is a global firm. And when I was in the litigation group, I thought right out of the gates I would be in a courtroom and trying jury cases and having fun. Well, little did I know that there would probably be about 20 lawyers staffed on each litigation. I would never see the inside of a courtroom, maybe for decades, and it was all paper, and most of litigation is paper. And at that time, real estate was getting more institutional. Latham needed more real estate transactional lawyers, and I just gravitated towards real estate, of seeing the fruits of one's labor, seeing the buildings being built, driving by those buildings. And so I ended up as a real estate lawyer and always had the entrepreneurial bug. And when I talked to law school classmates of mine or early colleagues of mine at Latham, they're actually shocked that I'm still a lawyer 24 years in. And it's really because I've set it up where I'm an entrepreneur. I'm in the real estate business. Yeah, my profession is on the legal side, but I invest a lot with my clients. So I really have a holistic way of being in the real estate industry through a legal bent and lens, and also through an investor.
I'll give you credit for that. I mean, I've been on both sides of the table from you, with you representing us and having you represent either clients of ours or partners of ours. And I didn't know you actually started on the litigation side, because I would consider you more of a deal maker than a litigator. And I mean, the business sense and practice really comes out when you and I work with each other, because it's amazing to me how many attorneys want to play whack-a-mole or prove themselves, and they often forget that their clients are trying to get deals done, and their job is to protect, not to be an obstacle or a gatekeeper.
Totally. Look, I despise working with lawyers who try to show that, or try to prove that they're the smartest person in the room, and they're putting up roadblocks, but they're not solution oriented. They only present issues, not solutions. And it's one of the reasons why I became a transactional lawyer. But more than that, to be a business minded transactional lawyer. For the first several years, we didn't even have litigation at our firm. I really despise litigation and wish that our clients always find a way to settle. But as you know, sometimes two sides aren't able to settle at a particular time, especially at the outset of litigation. And we ended up bringing litigation into our firm, but I always encourage our clients to try and find a business-minded solution before going down that path.
So I'm curious, so there you are, you're at Latham, you get this idea, you move to transaction, but like what was the passion, or what was the thought? Because I mean, I got to give you credit. You and I met over a decade ago, and there's always a little bit of hype when you're building a company of like, how big are you? Not, are you one person acting as 10 people acting as 20, or 100 people acting as one? But I mean, that's a big leap. Like, what was the impetus to actually say, yeah, I actually want to create my own firm? And, what's the legacy that the firm's looking to leave?
Yeah, look, coming out of the GFC, there was I had developed clients, I had developed relationships who were looking to pursue opportunities that they didn't know if they were going to get, and frankly, they wanted to minimize their dead deal costs. And transacting and working with the firms that I used to work for, they're expensive. And so, really, at the encouragement of my clients, I went on my own, and I had known Jeff Sklar, who's my co-founding partner. He's a corporate M&A lawyer who was at Loeb and Loeb. He had already set up his firm, and so we merged together. And really, what we found was there was a hole in the legal industry to provide um, institutional quality of legal services, but in a much more boutique entrepreneurial manner. So there were always boutique firms, small firms, solo practitioners, but they weren't providing that same type of institutional quality. They didn't have the pedigree of the Lathams and the Gibsons and the Scaddons and the Alamakins within their firm. They didn't have the law schools within their firm. They were just of a different type of firm, usually back then, of those smaller firms. So what we wanted to create was the boutique version of a Latham, where you don't need 3,000 lawyers. You need, we have 40 lawyers now. We started with 5, and we grew not because we wanted to get to a certain size, but we grew because of the client demand, because of you all, right? We needed to grow in order to keep servicing our clients in 3 ways. We needed to have, substantive expertise in the practice areas that we're focusing on. We needed to be super responsive. We didn't want, time kills all deals, and we did not want to be the bottleneck or a reason why a deal wasn't going to close. And third, we wanted to be cost effective. And so when you see on the closing statement the firms and what they're getting paid, there's some sticker shock, right? And we get a lot of clients because of that sticker shock. So to bring value, to be responsive, and most importantly, provide good work.
It's amazing. I mean, and the sticker shock is truly a shock. You and I were chatting about it the other day on a deal we did as a sponsor, and it's amazing where you can have your legal fees between the joint venture documents and the debt documents approaching 2, 3, 4% of the total deal. Whereas it used to be closer to 50 bips to one, and it's not just driven by the law firms; it's driven by the partners, et cetera. Is there, like, aside from just going to boutique firms, any suggestions for people watching this on how to keep their legal fees, more in check? So, because quite frankly, you can actually kill a deal just with legal fees.
For sure. Look, I was on a deal, refinancing of a hotel. It was a large refinancing. It was $100 million. Our fees were 100 grand. Lenders' fees were $720,000. It was outrageous, and our client almost killed the deal for it. I would say 2 to 3 things. One, get an upfront budget, but make sure the firm is providing you with updates, if not every 30 days, maybe even twice a month. Okay. And it is true, the last 10 days of a deal, the amount of work accelerates, and there is a lot of work. So sometimes the budgets and the estimates don't catch up to the very end. So one is getting updates as often as you can. Two, the big firms have an army of junior associates that they need to train, and they train on your deals. And where our firm is different is that we end up taking attorneys from the big firms after they've had 3, 4, 5, 6 years of experience or more, so that they don't need to train on your firm, on your deals. So I would be very clear at the outset of the engagement who's going to be working on it, how many lawyers are going to be on it, and making sure that you have approval rights before anyone else is staffed. That's the biggest gripe that I hear from clients. It's not necessarily the hourly rate. It's how many lawyers are on the bill and on calls, and why is it needed? And so we try and staff leanly. That's one of the biggest differences.
You talk about, 3, 4, 5 years before you can join your firm. What is it like for us? We always look at the not just knowledge depth, but I love when I'm talking to potential employees and they're saying, "Oh, I'm bored." That's a great one for me because I'm like, "Oh, I'll make sure you're never pigeonholed and never bored." And you know, in our business on the project management side, I want people that can go wide and deep and not see the world through a straw, but be able to understand how to go at 40,000 feet and then really truly understand how to build things or how to walk people through entitlement, and most importantly, can see around the next corner and have the grit to understand that no bad news gets better with time. And so my always like, you want that person that has a backbone and delivers everything just true and straight, but when really wakes up looking forward to doing our business. What is it you're looking for? Like if you have, associates that are listening, like what makes it to the top of the pile to go to work for you?
Yeah. So a couple things. One, have to understand the real estate market, have to understand who the players are out there. We're not going to necessarily know the exact cap rates of a deal in a particular location versus another location. That's not our job. That's a broker's job. That's the principal's job. But we need to understand what is market for these quasi business legal issues. And in fact, market for just business issues, preferred returns, promotes, waterfalls, fees. We see a ton of deals, a ton. And so clients look to us as to what is market um, so they can set their business deals. So don't be so tunnel visioned on just the legal language, on reps, warranties, indemnities, closing conditions. Understand what we are. We have access to the same amount of deal flow as brokers. And so we should understand what is market for those business terms. And we can then provide so much more value to our clients. That's number one. Number two is too many of the big firms over specialize their lawyers. Let me give you an example. I won't name which firms, but there are firms that will just have a subset of lawyers who all they do is shopping center leasing. That's it for their whole career. That's it. Well, they're not going to understand the real estate market if that's all you're doing. And so the lawyers at my firm, I want them to be able to do purchase and sale agreements, loan documentation, joint venture agreements, syndications. Um, that way they can be providing much more realistic, much more value because they see the bigger real estate world, not just from a narrow lens.
It's funny you say that, just how, you know, your legal counsel can help or kill a deal. Like I remember when I first started in my career, I had a client that had a sole proprietor that he had inherited from his father, and and how things change. And this client got mad at me because I was getting sideways with legal counsel because the legal counsel kept excluding developer fees from joint venture agreements and from the loan docs because in the 80s that wasn't a thing. And I'm like, so then I brought in two other attorneys and we realized that this attorney had probably cost my client millions and millions of dollars of development fees over the years just because they weren't keeping up with the times.
Yeah, 100%. And look, the real estate market evolves; it's fluid. What is market evolves monthly. We're in an odd market right now. We went from sellers having leverage to buyers having leverage to, depending on the asset class, who has the leverage. So you need to always have your antenna up as to where things are in this moment in time. And is it a distressed deal? Is it not a distressed deal? What is the circumstances surround? I always ask my clients, like, what are the circumstances surrounding this deal? Is this a need or a want, a must have, a wish list? So I can better advise my clients when it comes to both business issues and quasi business legal issues.
And you and I touch base on this kind of monthly, but I'd be curious to see where we are. We're getting into the summer slowdown, and everybody's kind of going, all right, is this a pause or a nod? And I know you saw a ton of note sales and distress and work out on office, and over the last quarter, starting to see more multi, run into trouble. But kind of if going back to the leverage, maybe walk us through different asset classes and who's got the leverage and where do you like, what are the tea leaves telling you of what's going to happen in the next 12 months?
Yeah, it's interesting. We're still seeing most of the distress focused on office. Uh, there was one deal I've talked about on my podcast, and it's been written about an office building uh, in a Rocky Mountain market where the loan amount was approaching 100 million, and the buyer bought it for 17 million. Right, that is a massive, massive discount. Um, we we're seeing some short sales in multifamily where the lender has accepted less than par, um, but we're not seeing the droves of distress come to a transaction in multi. Uh, I think the biggest challenge today is institutional capital and still the lack of conviction that institutions have in transacting today, where they're, and maybe they want to transact, but their return expectations are still not in line with the deals that are out there. And so it's been frustrating our operator and sponsor clients. And when they do get an opportunity to make those returns, maybe in an office note transaction, they throw up their hands and they say, well, we're not going to go back into office. Well, okay. Where do you want to transact then? And so that's been frustrating for our clients. So most of our transactions have been with family offices, high net worth individuals who see the longer term, don't have investment committees, willing to take bets, um, and so those that have capital and willing to transact are the ones that have the leverage.
Yeah, we're seeing very similar. Like our largest family office clients are leaning in now. Starting to entitle projects, starting to buy stuff that that we're looking to deliver in 2028 and beyond for them. But a lot of those they're fully vertically integrated GP. So it's a family office that they own the real estate. They're not the LP. A lot of them are playing all cash, no debt. And I would agree, like a lot of our mid-market private equity fund clients are it's still a little volatile for the Fed. They don't have conviction on what's going to happen or where, and nobody wants to bet on the bottom. But it's great. It's like we've helped some clients. We looked at one deal for two different clients that was a broken multifamily deal, note sale, and one client bid 27 cents on the dollar and the other client bid 80 cents on the dollar. And some of it just quite honestly had to do with where they were in their fund cycle and where they were looking to go. And this was a partially completed multifamily project, and it ended up selling for 85 cents on the dollar. So it's like the bid ask spread and the visibility that equity is looking at or debt's looking at today is true. In my mind, it's all over the place. It's hard to normally you can hone it in and say the pref's going to be this, or
Right.
the IRR or the cap's going to be that. But it's like it just depends on who you're talking to and who's reading Wall Street that morning.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest issues that our sponsor operator clients are facing in trying to get LP capital is the fact that the LP capital can be in the preferred equity space and get common equity returns. So 18%, add in the fees, maybe even 20%. I was with one client who is focusing on providing pref, and he said he's now seeing all in with fees 20 to 22%. So, wow, why would anyone do a common LP equity deal when you're able to get that type of return on the preferred equity side? Now, granted, there's no profit participation, although some pref equity deals, I do see some equity kickers. So that has been an impediment of getting deals done of where LP equity is necessary.
This last round we saw kind of the advent and the upswing of debt funds. And a lot of the public just thinks debt funds are no different than a private equity fund, but putting debt out. It's I'm starting to see some of our debt fund friends and clients where their sublines. So, just for our viewers here, a debt fund uses investment, but then they also use debt. They'll use a revolver or a credit line. So no different than all of us when we're taking debt out. Their cost of capital has gone up as well. And we're starting to see a few that their sublines are getting called, or there's distress at the debt fund level as well. But I'm just curious to see if that's something that's kind of widespread in your mind, and that could be the next note sale versus a regulator and a bank, or where that leads.
You know, I guess I'll just make an observation is that when I started the firm and coming out of the GFC, almost every day I was working on portfolio loan acquisitions. Buyer clients of mine didn't even care of what was in these portfolios. They were just buying it. So
Hello, CDO, like you get a ticker of the tape of 200 loans, and you figure that 30 of them will pay everything else off.
exactly. And we had 72 hours of due diligence, close in the next 5 to 10 business days. I'd have 12 hours to negotiate the loans purchase or loan sale agreement. And that was every single day, right? It was all right, what emergency do I have today, right? What urgent transaction am I going to do today? I haven't seen anything like that, right?
Either.
Every note sale has been one off, has taken a long time. This has been publicly written about and discussed. The Aon Center note acquisition, where I represented the buyer of the note, that was a 6 to 8 month process. Now, granted, 1,000,002 square feet, 9-figure transaction, but that would never happen. That never happened during coming out of the GFC. It was just blow and go. Lenders trying to get rid of their product and get more liquidity. I have not seen that. I'm not smart enough or inside enough to tell you why, other than my speculation is simply that the lenders are in a good cash position. We all thought a year ago or 2 years ago that we would see this type of distress and see the type of portfolio loan sales. We haven't. We thought we'd see a parade of bank failures after First Republic and Silicon Valley Bank and a couple others. We haven't. I think it's just we have to come to grips that this is our new normal of where interest rates are, and this is the new climate that we're in.
No disagreement. I mean, I look at the SOFR forward and look where it's going to go, and I think interest rates will come in, but it's the interesting thing will be when you look at your debt service coverage ratios for operators and banks. How long can people kind of ignore that? And to me, it's a 25-26 issue, not a 24 issue. There's too much political air cover at this point for stuff to get nutty, more nutty than it already is, especially in our state of California. But that's a whole different talk track. Yeah, it's an I don't know. It's like you and I go to conferences and such, and everyone pontificates about this, that, or the other thing. And it's like, to me, it's stick to the fundamentals.
Yeah, absolutely.
We can.
I mean, you're so focused on in construction, and I know it's hard to capitalize construction projects these days when you could buy newly constructed multifamily at or below replacement cost. So, how are things? God, I can't help myself. I'm a podcaster, right? So I'll ask a question: how are things on the construction side for you?
Yeah, it's one of the reasons I invited you. By the way, I like conversations, not monetary. It's so we're starting to see. We believe construction will bottom out cost wise this summer. Material is down anywhere from 30 to 300% depending on the type of commodity. You look at lumber was 475 per thousand board feet yesterday. it topped off at over 1,600 per 1,000 board feet at peak. Rebar's down 30 to 35%, PVC's down 50%, copper's down. The funny one is everybody worries about switch gears and electrical panels. I can now go buy electrical panels on eBay and Craigslist because you had a whole gray market created where people were stockpiling electrical panels just because it took so much time. So, but it takes that level of creativity. It's working with GCs or owners reps like us that with an owner that can buy direct, that's willing to negotiate with a lumber yard and say, we'll pay net 10 or net 30 and get an 8 to 10% discount because labor has not come down. And
Right.
that's, on and on. That's our biggest bugaboo. And unless we have a true black swan event, labor is our new normal. And, it's been a very, very rare reset. There's only been two in construction history. One was the Great Depression, and the other was the GFC. And we saw labor come down about 9%. Overall, right now, when you go off peak, we're down 10 to 12% in construction costs. That's across the board. So, and if you look, and it's averaged industrial. If I look at stronger markets, it's 8 to 9%. If I look at weaker markets like Dallas, we're 12 to 15% off peak. But that's still getting us back to 2018, 2019 numbers, where we were all hoping we were going to be getting back to 2015 numbers. I frankly don't think it's going to happen. So you got to take it out of, you have to take it out of your land bases.
Yeah. And the one topic that we haven't discussed is the significant increase in insurance costs. I own a few buildings myself, and I got a 50% increase on a little 4 unit here that I own in LA. I don't know how anyone can forecast and budget um, for that type of increase in insurance. And in some states, Florida, Texas, it's almost becoming impossible to even insure.
Yeah, the Northeast this year, we're actually seeing it level off and
Okay.
a 3 to 5% decrease. The Southeast is still having problems. And we'll talk. I'll get back to GL in a minute. I would say overall, we're forecasting a 20% increase in general liability insurance across the country uh, for this year. But one thing that I would suggest everyone do is truly work with an insurance broker that understands real estate, not just, your old friend that does your personal liability or your homeowner's insurance. And if you have multiple properties, look at a tower. And a tower is the ability to layer your policies under a master policy so you get buying power. But up front, if you're a developer, a massive, massive mistake we see a lot of people do is try to shorten their builder's risk or keep it, save money and say, oh, well, I think the project's 22 months, so I'll only buy 22 months of builder's risk. If you have to extend a builder's risk policy within the last 90 days of your construction, you're not, insuring 10%. Like builder's risk is priced on what's complete over the time. So if you have zero of your building built up front, you're insuring zero. The most expensive thing you can do is reinsure a 90% completed building because now you're insuring it for 6 months for the full replacement value. So spend a little bit of money and buy that extra time, and
Yeah.
it'll kill you if you don't. So yeah, and I would, there's lots of groups now that you can work with for buying across the country. People have looked at modular, they've looked at prefab. It's about the same cost. It just saves you a little bit on time. And again, a lot of general contractors or owners reps, construction managers in my business often forget that it's not just the $1,000 a day, or it's not just the rent of the apartment, but it's also the interest carry, it's the pref from the equity, it's everything. And so if your general contractor doesn't acknowledge that and won't, buy into liquidated damages, you have the wrong group.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
But I'm curious on the legal side. We do a lot with AI, as you know, and offshoring. Are you starting to see any of that, infiltrate your clients, or is there a way that they can utilize it to have their own team be a quasi paralegal and help on the legal bills or make their work with you more efficient?
Yeah, it's a good question, and more clients are asking me about it to make sure that we're utilizing technology in order to be efficient and save on legal fees. Um, it's helpful in litigation where you have AI reviewing tens of thousands of documents and searching for certain words so that you don't have junior associates doing that. In leasing, especially smaller leasing, to have AI handle those types of leasing, or at least 90% of it, and then a lawyer or paralegal making sure that the AI was done properly. Where AI and law firms have gotten into trouble is utilizing AI for the drafting of court documents, of pleadings, and the cases either didn't exist or were wrong as to what a lawyer was trying to offer, and judges have nailed law firms for relying on that. So it's still at the early stages, and we want to utilize it to help clients. And uh, it'll be refined, and people will ask me, are you concerned about the future of the legal industry because of AI, because of technology? Not at all, because of what we talked about before. AI is never going to be able to provide that type of personal white glove counseling, holistic counseling that bridges business and legal issues. No, AI will be a tool that we will use to prepare our documentation, but never to replace us, or at least I hope.
I totally agree with you. And for us, offshoring is very similar. It's like the moment we went to remote workplaces, you need to look at across the country and across the globe. But I was talking to a friend that's the head of design for a very large video game company, and how AI is affecting that. And if they're going to cut, it takes 300 to 500 employees to make a video game. And I said, "Oh, are you going to cut your workforce?" And they said, "Absolutely not. We're just going to produce more games." So for them, it's about more throughput, not about less headcount, because
Yeah,
it's they're
yeah,
looking to always
absolutely.
come up with the next version of 2.0 and 3.0 and everything. And if they can do it every 6 months versus every 12 months, well, that's a huge revenue game changer for them. So anyway, all right. Well, I always appreciate your time, my friend. And the H to H, human to human, for me is what it's about. I mean, you and I met through YPO and ULI, and the more that I think our upcoming folks in the industry can truly understand like what networking and relationships and friendships mean. And it's not just that, oh, I'll call you when I have a deal. I mean, you and I ski with each other, enjoy each other, and it's like I always know I can call you whenever, because that's the kind of firm you are and represent. And it's I hope both of us can teach the next generation that relationships really aren't commodities, because they're not at all.
100%. And it's a marathon. It takes a long time to establish trust and relationship building, and to refer each other to clients and do business together. It just doesn't happen because two people met each other at a conference and talked for 5 minutes, and now all of a sudden they're going to be doing nine-figure deals together. It doesn't work like that. And so I tell my young associates, it's not just getting involved passively, it's getting involved actively, being on the boards, being on executive committees, and having consistency in showing up. You can't just show up once and expect it all to come. It's got to be part of your day-to-day life, really. And it's harder with kids and families and work and travel. And I get it. But in order to have the type of network that you do and that I've been able to create, it's you have to work on it every day.
I'm curious, and I preach this at home. We always hear about work life balance. My family calls it the program, and my wife started with it. My kids are on it. They realize that dad's work is part of the family. So they come to our corporate events. They do different things. They're used to being on calls, and it's I guess I've always programmed my work life balance of including my family in work, not trying to separate them out or say, oh, I'm walking away from the phone. Like they know they're a priority whenever I'm around, but they're included in it. I mean, I hope we can figure out how to teach the next gen on that as well, where it's not just you put your phone down on the weekend and if a client calls, you don't answer because it's family time. It's like your clients should be family, and you know they don't come before your family and children, but they need to be up there with them because
Yeah,
it's how we
they're
provide livelihood.
100%. I mean, and the relationships that I cultivate with my clients is one of family or very close friends, so that regardless of the issue that they are having, I'm the first phone call because A, they know I'll pick up, and B, they know if I don't know the answer or if my firm doesn't have the capabilities, I will get them to the right person who can help them. And if they're calling me, it's because there's an issue that needs assistance, and integrating my family with that in the service business. I think it's vitally important. I love taking my family and kids in particular to certain YPO events where they're included, or charity events where they can get literally roll up their sleeves and help out from a community perspective. They see from a networking perspective that you have to build in order to. It's not just from a monetary aspect; it's really from a life aspect of just building your network to have a more fulfilling life.
Oh, completely. Well, as we get ready to close, so aside from our listeners calling for Andrew McAfee Kirsch, who should they reach out? That was your few good men references.
It was a Lieutenant McAfee. I know. I appreciated that.
Who should they reach out to at the firm if they're looking for help for you? You
No, look,
directly?
yeah, always reach out to me directly at sklarkirsh.com. If it touches real estate, I'm sure we can help. We transact nationally. In fact, well over 50% of our deals are outside of California, even though most of my clients are located in California. It's across all asset classes, from multifamily to office to hotels to retail, industrial, self-storage. And we transact throughout the capital stack. Half of our clients are operators, borrowers, and the other half are capital providers, whether they're JV equity providers or debt funds. So, look, Colby, I really appreciate you having me on. I love being on this side of the table, as I mentioned at the beginning, and I really appreciate more than anything of just our friendship and how it's developed over well over 10 years now.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. And for me, I have the true privilege of running CREDE, and we're not just a construction management firm. We're developers. We're owners ourselves. We're owners, reps, program managers, and having partnerships with law firms like Andrews and partnerships with LPs and capital providers or debt and equity brokers. It allows us to see the whole picture and holistically really help our clients because I always say both of your and my jobs are to act like quarterbacks and allow the owners to make educated decisions and provide the best players we can on the field. So please continue to listen in. Check us out on CREDEgroup.com and all our different social media channels. And I look forward to talking to you on the next show. Have a great day, Andrew.
Thank you, Colby. You too.
You've been tuning into the Real Estate Play Offense podcast with your host, Colby Durnin.